scene. Hello and welcome to the podcast, Falcon.
Thank you, Sir Somicron. It is good to be back for 2 weeks in a row of the podcast.
Oh, it's a whole new record. Whew.
It is a new record for us.
We need a sign that's like weeks without incident. Now we can have like a 2 on.
Yes. One of us needs to do that. One of us has to put that behind us. And considering that I have a Discord screen up behind me, I think that's you.
I don't know. That seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, I know. It does.
Maybe I'll consider it. I'll consider getting like a big whiteboard or something to put in the background. I can just scribble on it.
All right. I appreciate it. Good plan. Yo. Okay, so before we get into Oppenheimer, which we are going to talk about today, in theory. Well, that's why I mean, as soon as I said it, I was like...
The theory will only get you so far.
Yes, the theory. Yep. Man, there are some good lines in this movie.
Sure.
I just want your take on the bear druid sex conversation we were having in general earlier today.
So, I'll be honest. I got pinged at a certain point to do a certain thing. I did not scroll up and read any of the context.
And I assumed you did not. So I'll give it to you quick here, okay?
But hold on. I would just like to say that based on the comment in which I was pinged at, I can agree with your sentiment.
Okay, good. So for the people who are watching the podcast or listening to the podcast, we're just going to clear this up real quick. If you marry someone who's a human, as far as you know, and one day they turn into a bear, and they can talk and they're sentient and they're the person you love in there, but they're physically a bear, and you're okay with having sex with the bear,
that's unbearable.
You were into bestiality at some point before that day. I'm just saying,
hold on. That's not what you said. Because, what you said was that person who fucks their husband or like their partner who is shapeshifted into a bear also has sexual feelings for just bears in general, like non-sentient bears. But that means it could develop in the future and not necessarily in the past. Like, I wouldn't say it's always been there, but if you can bridge the gap between this is my husband who is now a bear, you can then moving forward be like, well, I will then go and fuck that other bear. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the past.
But that's my point. If your initial reaction to my loved one is now a bear,
that was not in what I was pinged.
Okay, that's fine. I know. What you were pinged with was one thing that I said in a giant conversation we had for like 2 hours, okay?
Wow, that was a 2-hour conversation? What a way to spend a Tuesday morning.
Yes, it
was.
Or
a Monday evening. I don't know what it is.
I was simultaneously working. But a lot of it was like, hey, Falcon, go start a virtual machine and let me know what it does. And it's like, okay, click start and wait 10 minutes. Anyway, okay, that's the thing. If your partner's like, I have something to show you, please don't freak out. Like in Nimona. Have we talked about Nimona?
No.
I don't think we talked about Nimona. Nimona's great. I have something to show you. Please don't freak out. Turns into a bear and goes, it's me. Like, don't run away. I needed to share this with you. I'm a shapeshifter. I can turn into a bear. I'm a druid or whatever. If your initial reaction is, sweet, I can have sex with this bear husband that I love, let's do this, then you were already into it.
There are a lot of things there that I was not aware of, right? So, first and foremost, right, like, if they're a druid, they have the ability to come and go as a bear. They don't have to be a bear. You can just say no.
Yes.
Right? My initial reading of the statement implied to me that it was a permanent and like a curse. So it's not like you could, this is my husband who I love who is stuck as a bear. Not, this is my husband who kind of wants to do it as a bear. And I'm gonna, right?
Yeah.
That's different. But it also just like implies a lot of things about people in less silly situations than being stuck as a bear. Like, if I had loved my wife and one day she was in a car accident and lost her arm, that doesn't mean I'm suddenly and always been a someone who's into cripples, you know? Like that's
Different.
it's different.
Different.
It is different, but it's
Human
the same
is
principle.
No, human is human. Human
Mm,
is human. Human
but
turning into bear has crossed a line, my friend.
but humans are about what's on the inside, and it's about the soul
No.
that's in that bear.
No, stop trolling. We're having a serious conversation here.
Okay, yes, I'll stop the trolling as we talk about who would fuck a bear.
No trolling. No. This is a legitimate question because this all came up because
my
there was a
sister and her
Baldur's
kids watch
Gate
this show.
There was a Baldur's Gate 3 reveal video at some video game conference they held, right?
Okay.
And there's a there's like a vampire elf dude.
Yeah, I know him.
Okay.
Asterion, I think his name is.
And there's a druid who turns into a bear, and they're like, "Yeah, let's get it on." And everyone, like, not everyone, but like, there was a sizable contingent of the crowd that was like, "Yes!" And I was like, "Are there more people into this than I thought?" I am confused. So I was like, "Are there more people into bestiality than I thought?" And then the point that came back to me from Caden was like, "Not necessarily." That's not necessarily what that means because of the romantic connection between you and the person. So then we got into the whole thing. So that's where it came from.
So if we go to an alien planet and there are...
Oh, that's what Caden got into. Star Trek and Mass Effect, right?
Sure. I was going to say Futurama because it's a little more
that too. Same
hugely diverse. And like...
It is.
Asaris are just like blue humans, right? Like it's very easy to get over that. But when you're like, who are these slime people in Futurama? That's a little like you have to be willing to go one step further than just blue human, you know?
Yeah. And that's my point. Is if you're willing to have sex with a slime alien, then you already had the tendency to be into slime aliens before you met this one. You did not gain this this desire now.
Right. But it's not wrong to bang the slime alien in Futurama.
No. Again, I'm not talking about morality. It's fine. It's moral. It's consent. The druid has sentience and can consent. The slime alien can consent. It's fine.
We should play Baldur's Gate 3.
We should.
Yeah.
It looks really good.
I've got it. It's great.
You're doing pre-access stuff?
Yeah, I pre-ordered it ages ago because I've been enjoying Divinity 2 Original Sin with my housemate.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, I really want to play Divinity, but I don't want to like go further in the story without my housemate. So, here's this new and upcoming game that's made by the same people. I'll just play that instead.
Good call. How are you enjoying it?
Oh, really good. I think I got up to like where the early access stopped because they started running into parts that I couldn't go to. It's just like, this part's not available yet. And I'm like, okay. Here's where we paused, and that was like 4 months ago.
Yeah. Okay, that's rad. Awesome. Yeah, let's do it. If you like it, then that's a good thing. It's a good recommendation. So excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last time I played it? April.
Anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So my other question was, are these people in the audience into bestiality in particular when they're going, or
just consensual sex?
Consensual sex, but with a taboo element to it. Just a generic, this is outside the scope of what is socially acceptable. You know what I mean?
So the druid's a dude, and the vampire dude's a dude as well, right? So it could just be like...
Could have just been like gay dudes. This is representation. Yeah. We're into that. Yeah.
Right.
Good point. Good point.
It could also just be like, we're not shying away from the adult stupidness that is essentially Dungeons and Dragons at times. You know? Like, I roll to seduce the dragon, and I was like, yes, you can do that here too. You can roll to seduce the bear. Yeah.
Right. Except it's not bear, it's druid in bear form. Different thing.
Right. That druid, I think, can only transform into a bear in the game, if I remember correctly. It's really strange.
That seems really limiting for a druid.
Especially in the bedroom.
Yeah. Everywhere. But especially in the bedroom. Because, all right, fair enough. So, honestly, the original question, you helped me with that. You gave me some alternative reasons why people would woo at that in a video game presentation. So, all right, good. That did some enlightening for me. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
I still think the original point
That
of
people who bang their bears are probably always end up being banging bears.
yes.
Okay.
Do you think so?
I think it's probably a correlation there. Like, I would not discredit the theory immediately, but I would need harder evidence.
But we can't because this is not a real thing. There are no druids.
Right.
There's no shape-shifting. This is an entirely fictional realm that we're investigating here.
Well, according to you.
Well,
I mean,
am I
druids
too
are
close-minded?
like druids are a real thing. Like, not the magic kind necessarily, but people who identify themselves as druids or like pagans or something, they might believe in that they can shapeshift.
Yeah,
All those legends had to come from somewhere. There's always a kernel of truth in a legend. That's what they say.
That is what they say.
Yep.
This also just reminds me of the like when you go to your partner and like, if I was a worm, would you still love me? And it's like this stupid question that's like dumb.
No,
but it's kind of what we're talking about here.
I mean, I mean, if my partner turned into a worm, would I still love them? It's like, yeah, but I would love them as a worm. And what I do with worms that I love is not step on them, and I put them back in the soil. You know?
Right.
Maybe that makes me a monster, but you're a worm. I'm gonna make sure you don't get eaten by a bird. That's something.
I put you in a terrarium with dirt and stuff.
Could do that.
Keep you safe.
I don't have a terrarium, so I had to be like, I'm gonna go buy a terrarium.
Yes.
But what are you gonna do with the?
But that's it.
What are you gonna do with the worm? Are you gonna take the worm out terrarium shop and be like, which terrarium do you want?
No. Just get a terrarium.
You're not gonna consider their feelings on this?
Can they talk?
I don't know. They're a worm.
If they're a worm, they don't have this. They can't talk to you.
Well,
the best you can do is just like try to figure out what kind of terrarium your worm partner wants.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, this is a real Dune situation where Lita's going to talk to a giant sandworm and turn into it, you know?
Yeah. Good point.
So maybe worms can talk.
Maybe. Okay. So like there's some telepathic connection because it's magic anyway, right?
Right. If it's telepathic and they're like, I don't want a terrarium, I want a fishbowl, I guess go buy them a fishbowl.
Yeah. Put some dirt in a fishbowl.
Yeah. They don't want like the full rectangular setup with the heat rocks and all that stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I totally understand like, oh, my partner has been secretly a druid this whole time and they turn into a bear. Like, sure, I love them with their shape-shifting abilities, and if they were stuck as a bear, I'd still love them. But like, we are not having sex. That's it. The end. Not happening ever. Yeah. And anybody who's like, I don't know. It's like, you're already into animals. I'm sorry. That's it. That's my entire point.
My partner goes, hey, I'm a druid and a shapeshifter and I can turn into a bear. I'm like, you've left some very key details out I would have liked to know a while ago.
There's some trust which has been broken here. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there you have to go to some therapy. I agree.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you can, I don't know, when you're going on holidays and you just like put them in a kennel or something, it saves on costs at least.
Brutal. All right, good. That's it. That's all I wanted. That's the entire conversation that I wanted to have. I'm glad we're on the same page.
All right.
Okay. Deal. The Oppenheimers?
The Oppenheimers. Yeah, so I went and saw that yesterday, and I had a real, like, moment of panic where I'm like, this movie is so long.
Yes.
Right? Because I don't remember the last, like, 3-hour movie I went and saw. It was probably, like, Endgame or something, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, do I sneak in more drinks and snacks? Because, like, the regular size popcorn and drink is not big enough for me for a 3-hour movie.
The other concern is, well, you have to use the toilet halfway through the movie.
No, I won't.
You have a bladder that's like the size of a bear's.
Mm-hmm. After the movie, I went and got a haircut and then walked home, so I was fine.
Oh, wow. How much did you drink?
A large Coke.
Okay. I don't know what large means in Australia, but okay.
It's probably like 600 milliliters.
Mm.
Bigger than a can, smaller than like the medium bottle, right?
Oh, that's nothing.
It's yeah. I mean, movie theaters are ripoffs. Like, what do you want?
Would you like me to show you what large means in America?
It's like 64 ounces, isn't it?
I don't know how many ounces it is, to be honest with you. It's very big.
It's a 1.8 liter, so it's probably like 3 times what I drank. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm glad we figured that out. Because you were like, "Oh, fine. I went, got a haircut, walked home." It's like, oh, you drink half what a large
Okay.
movie drink is. Good job.
In my defense, I will say I also was like, since I know that this drink is so small and this popcorn will not last, I went out to KFC and got a popcorn chicken go bucket and a can of Pepsi. So I also had that before I went in. And you also have to remember that, like, I ate food while I was home before I came out.
Fair.
So it's not nothing. Before you dismiss my urine capacity abilities.
Just less than I expected is all. It's fine. It's fine.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't auto by the milliliter. I just ask for a large. It could be about a liter. Could be bigger. Could be less. Could be more. I don't know. Because they don't give us a size. They're just like, do you want a small, medium, or a large? I'll take a large.
Yeah, we don't either.
And I learned that from like McDonald's. If you order a large Coke, that's only about a can. That's a 375 mils. Like,
yeah,
6 ounces or whatever it is.
It's a can is 8 ounces here. I don't know if it's. I don't know if a can is a can between the countries.
Well, okay, so 8 fluid ounces is 236 milliliters. Now cans, like a regular old can of Coke, it's 375. So probably like 9. Yeah,
okay,
closer to 9
interesting.
ounces.
So yeah, it's not the same size. Weird. Regional cultural differences in sizes in Coke products.
Probably has to do with how much sugar you can have in a single serving of drink. Like, we can get away with a slightly larger Coke in Australia. Let's do it.
That's weird though, because America just like does not care, unless you're New York. New York has some restrictions.
Right, but that's the thing. You can just go and buy a large Coke and get like 6 cans. So they don't need they want the little cans to be more like they want more cans in like a crate that they sell in America. I've been entirely making this up on the spot.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Anyway, we had a discussion actually in the Discord server about how long the movie was, and my point was, every one of the last 5 movies from Christopher Nolan have been at least 2.5 hours. So if you're going into a Nolan movie being like, this is probably 90 minutes, no, you are wrong. You must abort your mission. You must be aware that it's at least 2.5 and possibly 3.
Yeah, at one point, they used to print the end times on movie tickets so you could look at it and be like, yes, we'll go in at 11, we'll be out by 1. Not the case anymore.
That's awesome. I mean, it sucks now, but that was awesome.
Yeah. Also, I have digital tickets, so I don't really look at them anyway. So it might still be on there, but I deleted it already.
Fair. Doesn't it show the history on the app of what tickets you bought in the past?
No, I don't.
My theater does.
I don't have an account.
Oh, interesting. So how they just send you an email?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And now I can't find the email, which is why I think I deleted it. But oh well. It doesn't matter. So I got in at like 11:05. Movie was supposed to start at 11, but I was like,
you still had 25 minutes of ads and previews.
Sure did.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the thing. I was like, this is a 3-hour movie. Movie theaters operate by like playing more movies during like as many movies as they can during the day. So they probably will skip some of that, I thought, because like you can in a 9-hour workday, you can play that movie twice with cleaning. So if you skip out some of that stuff, you can maybe play it a third time, Nope.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the logic behind what you're talking about here, but no.
No. But I was still pleasantly surprised to find it was only like 1 o'clock when I got out, which means the movie is really only 2.5 hours, and then some with credits.
Really?
Yeah. Now we're quickly Googling to see what
I know the Google says
it's 3 hours. But that means it's got 30 minutes of credits.
What?
Yeah.
Or you're getting the censored version in Australia. There's something your government doesn't want you to see.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Is there a section in the movie where they really break down and explain how the bomb works? Because that wasn't in my version.
Oh, that's it. They're like, the Australians are too dumb.
Yeah,
we don't won't understand it anyway. They'll walk out of the theater and tell their friends not to come see it.
They don't have US security clearance to know how these things work.
Unlike every American citizen.
Every loyal American citizen.
Every true American says the Pledge of Allegiance every morning.
Yeah, they're worried we'll build them.
That's fantastic. That's good. Anywho, yeah, I don't know. I feel. How long are the credits? How long are Oppenheimer credits? Google says. No, I'm not asking if there's a post-credits scene. That's not what my question is.
Oppenheimer 2, Electric Boogaloo.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't.
Every result is like, is there a post-credits scene?
Mm-hmm. This will be something that's much easier to solve in 2 months because we can just pull up the movie.
Yeah, wherever it's gonna be, because he's with. I think he's working with Universal now, and I don't know where Universal movies go. Universal movies stream. The internet says Amazon Prime. Oh, that's good. I have Amazon Prime. All right, cool. We'll check it out when it gets to Amazon.
Fair enough.
Sweet. Anyway, overall, how did you feel about the film?
Overall, thumbs up. I enjoyed the film. I couldn't help stop and think, but how much of this has been gussied up for entertainment purposes? You know?
Okay. For example, was there a scene where you were like, "Oh, this is not historically accurate"?
No, well, I'm not super familiar with the events of the movie. I wasn't there, and I've not super read up on it. So I was just it puts it very much in the perspective of Oppenheimer was the guy that, even though that this was a scientific collaboration between many scientists, this was the guy. He was there. He was doing everything. He was judge, jury, and executioner, and blacksmith, and everything in this town. He was running it like his own little fiefdom. And how much of that was true? How much of that was he was an effective administrator and he was present, intellectually and physically at a lot of the scientific discoveries or the processes during the work. But how much of it was it he ran it like his own little kingdom? Because they kind of lean in on that a lot. He's when that other guy who just wants to build a hydrogen bomb, they won't let him leave, but they're taking their cues from Oppenheimer that you can raise the gate now, it's fine, or don't let him leave, right? They these are military MPs, and they're it feels like Oppenheimer's a gangster and they're on his payroll.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how accurate it was, but I mean, as far as the movie's concerned, the U.S. military said we need somebody to run this.
Mm-hmm.
Our generals don't have any expertise required to do this. We need to find someone who can. They chose Oppenheimer and said, get this done. Here is all of the power you need to get it done. And if that means you can keep people here, that means you can keep people here.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, part of that too was that the U.S. military didn't want people leaving either. The whole point of them bringing their families in was because people are more willing to come in for a couple years and do this thing without wanting to take vacations back home.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, for their policy to be nobody leaves, and to allow Oppenheimer to be have some say in that, I think that makes sense.
Right, but here's the thing: the guy wasn't leaving the town; he was just leaving the research area. Like he was still going back to like his quarters to pack or whatever. He was still in the town.
Yeah, okay. Good point.
So it's maybe a
I don't know.
confrontation like that did happen, but they've just moved it for convenience in the editing to be like, look, let's put this right at where we know they are, rather than being like, let's teleport them halfway across town to have this conversation. You know, um,
Yeah, I'm
it's
sure
the
there was
kind
a
of thing
bunch of
that
that.
happens in writing a script about historical events. I looked up that Los Alamos had actually a population of around 6,000 by the end.
It's a lot of
Uh,
people.
it's a lot of people, and so like the scenes where he's like giving a speech in the basketball court feels
After
real
the
after
successful test?
after
No.
the successful drops on
After
Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Hiroshima and
Yeah,
Nagasaki. Yeah.
yeah. That they felt really small. I still feel like those scenes work really well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really like them. Those are probably my favorite bits.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like they like Nolan went to a lot of effort to explain the scale of the atomic bomb at the Trinity tests, and why they were so big and why it needed to be 2 on Japan, and then was like, all right, now let's just not worry about the scale. What set do we have that we could use for this? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm getting artistic license, like you said.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's just a sense of we'd like to do this scene where Oppenheimer is haunted by what he has seen. And it works better if
Mm,
there are 500 people in this room than if there are 6,000 people in
6,000.
this room. Yeah.
Right.
Sure. I'm sure conversations like that were being held.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Decisions were made that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So one of the things that I don't think I recognized when I was watching the movie is that through the movie, if you're seeing a scene in color, then
Mm.
it's from Oppenheimer's perspective. And if you're seeing a black and white scene, it's from an objective outsider third person perspective. And in the scenes where he's in color, he's more personable, he's more relatable, you more understand, he's more talkative, what he's going through, what he thinks, what he understands. And in the black and white scenes, he's extremely withdrawn. He doesn't make eye contact with people. And I think that was the intended to like show how other people viewed him versus how he saw himself throughout this entire process.
Mm.
And I thought that was interesting. But yeah, nothing I picked up on when I was watching the film. I had to read that
I
later.
I did not pick up on that explicitly during the
Yeah.
film, because Oppenheimer is present for both black and white and in color shots, but it is
Yep.
definitely about a perspective once you say that.
Mm-hmm. Specifically, the scene where he's working with Robert Downey Jr. and they're at the table and there's that big flower piece in the middle that they finally move.
Yeah, I was
Right?
like, get rid of that. Like,
He doesn't look at anyone. He's
mm-hmm.
down, he's out, he's pacing, he's looking at the walls. He's impossible to connect with
Mm-hmm.
on this matter. And I noticed that and I was like, is that just like a post-bomb Oppenheimer was like less able to connect with humans because of all, everything he'd been through. But apparently that was happening even before that scene, even before the bomb was dropped. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I thought it was an interesting thing to do. Again, Nolan can't just tell a straight up story. He's got to mess with stuff. He's got to mess with different timelines like he did in this, and he's got to mess with color versus not color. And I think he gets bored if he doesn't do that. When weirdo.
Well, I mean, I think any good director will play with color to some extent, like because
Yeah.
obviously you want to like associate characters with colors, and color theory is a big thing in movies. Um, Going whole hog and just being like these scenes are entirely black and white. At first, I didn't know what like because the movie basically opens with like Strauss, Robert Downey Jr.'s character, talking about some Senate thing, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. I'm just
Right.
gonna hope it goes away because it's an American thing and I don't understand. And then like most of the movie is also that. So I had to figure that out by context clues. But for a big part of it to just be in black and white, I thought it was interesting. And
It's
yeah,
visually interesting because
yeah.
nothing's in black and white anymore. You're like, oh, what's this? It makes you pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird, right? Like something that is definably less visually interesting because there's no color is more interesting
Mm-hmm.
just because it's different than what we're used to now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, fun.
Also, I was just looking at Aki talking there about what
Yeah.
the J Robert Oppenheimer stands for.
Yeah.
Apparently, on the Wikipedia, according to Frank, Oppenheimer's brother,
Yeah.
said that the J doesn't actually stand for Julius. That their dad wanted to name Oppenheimer Robert after his father, but didn't want him to be a junior, so they just named him J. Robert
So
Oppenheimer.
the
The J
J is
literally means nothing.
junior.
Yeah, but
No, it
they
means
had
junior.
it means junior, but it doesn't
Yeah.
because it's just a J. It's
Right.
not JR.
Oh, that's interesting. That's one way
Yeah,
to do it, I guess.
but apparently it does also say Julius on the birth certificate. So
Fair.
both. Maybe they just had to write something in. I don't know.
I mean, if nobody ever called him Julius, then
Julius.
like, was his name really Julius?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Hmm.
Right. Cool. So yeah, a lot of, I mean, so many actors in here, just across the board. Matt Damon's in here doing stuff. As Aki said, Aki was on a break from acting at the behest of his wife, and the only exception was if Christopher Nolan called and asked him to do something, and Nolan called. So that's why Matt Damon is in this movie.
That's fair.
That was interesting. Okay, so the women characters in this film. Christopher Nolan has often been accused of not knowing how to write women in his
Uh-huh.
movies.
Having a
I don't
movie
think
set in the
this
40s really helps cover that up.
did not help. This movie does not help him defend against that accusation. Holy crap.
I feel like for a period piece that it totally works, and if this was a standalone movie, then yeah, maybe.
But like, okay, so the Florence Pugh character.
Uh-huh.
Love Florence Pugh. She has
Mhm.
elevated everything I've ever seen her in. She
Uh-huh.
makes the movies better. She makes TV shows better. And this,
I thought she was
her
great.
her entire character is I am dour. I'm a communist,
Uh-huh.
and I'm kind of in love with Oppenheimer, but not like all the way.
Uh-huh.
And I tell him not to bring me flowers, and he does, and I throw them away.
Uh-huh.
That's all you have to work with. Why do we not give her more to work with?
Why was
What
Gene
else is she
Tatlock
into?
why was Gene Tatlock not a better person for the story to have something to work with? Like
There
when
is definitely more about Gene Tatlock to work with than we got in this film.
almost certainly. But when like the core like conflict at the end of the movie is the examination of Oppenheimer's life in the Security Council. It's not a court. What do they call it? Like a brief? I don't know. It's kind of a court, but like we're not judges. You know, I can't remember what that was called.
Yeah, I mean, it's just basically the U.S. deciding if he has clearance for top
Right.
secret stuff.
When
Yeah.
though, like what Gene Tatlock was is the relevant points there.
This one time we had sex, and she had me read some Farsi out of a book.
They
That's relevant to the conversation.
I mean, the bit that he had to read was actually it's like setting up
Okay.
the his most famous quote of all time.
I know.
But they probably didn't have sex once. They probably had sex multiple times. Like, and they're just like, this is the important part. He was intimate with this communist. Here's who she is.
He was deeply in love with her. She was not that deeply in love with him.
Mm-hmm.
He cheated on his wife with this woman at least one time, and then she died, and it almost destroyed him.
Yeah.
But he was never a communist. That's the important bit.
But he had intimate relations with communists.
Right.
So that the entire idea is that it pulls things into perspective. Can I just say that I really like the shot of when I realized that his wife was sitting on the couch behind him, and then the camera's panning as he's talking about it. And then as they come around from behind some dude's head, he's naked and being like revealing himself. And I'm like, oh man, this is really well shot. And then she's there, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is just getting a little uncomfortable to film.
And then Florence Pugh makes direct eye contact with Emily Blunt, and you're like, okay. Like, I know what we're doing here, but a little over the top, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just a touch. But I mean, she was great in that role, I feel like.
She did what she could with it. I still think it's a waste of her as an actor. That's all.
No, I disagree.
Okay. And then Emily Blunt, who is, again, a goddess and one of the best actors we have in the world right now. And she gets to be drunk and hate children and have one incredible scene where she stands up for herself and her husband and nothing comes of it at the end. It's like, oh, well, thanks for showing up, Emily Blunt. You're great. She is. But again,
I feel like they
give her more
probably
to do.
wasted her more. But again, the movie's like it's about setting up his relationships with people. It's not about these people. So the story is not about Jean Tatlock or Catherine Kitty. I can't remember her like surname. I suppose it would be Oppenheimer after they got married. But
sure is.
The movie's not about them, but it needs to set up the basics of what their relationships were like. She's an alcoholic because she was a biologist, but became a housewife because it's the 40s, you know?
Like
so
an
she's
insanely common story. Yeah.
Yeah. So she is someone who is incredibly competent in her field, probably, who is then feeling like she's stuck at home looking after a baby. And the first thing her husband says to her when he gets home is like, shouldn't you be like looking after this kid? And she's like, fuck you, dude. I've been looking after him all day. Not an uncommon story even today.
No, not even a tiny bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they're like, we're pregnant again, I was like, why? You don't even want this one.
Right.
They did such a good job too with the baby crying. I was like, oh man, that takes me back. Like that is a sound. One of my middle kid had colic. So for this like 2-month period, he'd have this 4 to 8 p.m. time where he just did that. He just screamed, he cried, and it drives you insane. Like it totally helps you empathize with Emily Blunt's character because, yep, sometimes kids are that way, and there's nothing you can do about it. And people are going to call you a bad mom, right? Right. And that scene where Oppenheimer brings the kid to his friend, and he's like, "Can you take this kid?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that hurts." That was so brutal. I understood where he was coming from, though, and man, terrible.
So here's the thing: was that kid in a moment where like he just can't stop crying, like this kid won't stop crying, or is it that she just won't go to him? Which is it?
Yeah, I mean that's a question the movie's not interested in answering, right? Is that, and it doesn't matter. Kids are gonna cry. That's it. Sometimes they're crying because they're being neglected. Absolutely. Sometimes you can make sure the kid is cared for in every possible way. They're gonna scream their lungs out. Doesn't matter. It's just a part of parenthood. And whether or not Emily Blunt was failing at her job, I think is irrelevant.
Fair enough.
That's how I feel about it.
I would agree because the movie is not about whether or not the child was crying. It was about what it did to Oppenheimer and his relationships.
Yeah.
Also, I was reading about this. So what's the New Mexico is where he's like always getting out to go camping and horseback riding and stuff. And eventually that's where he chooses to be for Los Alamos to be. Do you know why he loved It's Out There so much? It's something the movie did not touch on at all.
No, I don't know.
Oppenheimer had tuberculosis, and the air in places like New Mexico was said to cure tuberculosis, so he was likely able to just breathe better while he was there. And that's why he loved it out there so much.
The dry air. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Cool. And the military is like, it's 8,000 miles from anything. Perfect. Let's do it.
Exactly.
I cannot relate to, all right, we're going to move out to the middle of the desert and I'm going to do science for 2 years and we can't leave. Let's go. It's like, I understand it's a war effort and it's the middle of World War II and everybody has this cohesive, like, we're working together. We're sacrificing for the greater good. But man, just a different mentality is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't be like, hey, let's move out to Salt Lake City and run virtual machines for the next 10 years. I just couldn't do it. And never leave. I'll just get Taco Bell every other day, but never leaving.
Yeah. Bingo.
Honestly,
exactly right.
Yeah, I don't know. It would be rough. I mean, it would be like, wow, this is some like really nice views and some real pretty scenery I've seen every day for the last 3 years. You know,
Yeah.
it's rough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Mm.
I did like that they gave Oppenheimer. I mean, I don't know if they gave Oppenheimer faults or if they just displayed his faults as part of the biography.
Mm.
But like the fact that he's very clear about he's no math genius, like that's
Mm-hmm.
not what he does. He's got to bring
Right.
other people for that. And if they're doing math things, he doesn't check it. He's like, I need you to check this because you're another genius math person.
Right.
And that was nice. And then just the fact that he was like unfaithful to his wife and cheating, like that's a pretty solid moral failing we can give to this man.
Mm-hmm.
Good. I just
Also true.
appreciated it because they could have just lionized him. They could have looked over the
Uh-huh.
weaknesses and just been like, this guy,
I,
ended the war and he was a genius. It's like, well, okay, but what else was he,
I think it's a little harder to have that conflict at the end where it's like you're very clearly dredging through his entire life if you then glossed over all of that in the previous 2 hours. So I think
Yeah.
setting all that stuff up and making sure you really displayed him as a chronic smoker, a womanizer, all these things. Someone who was. I think one of the things that they didn't display very well was that apparently he wasn't particularly an expert in anything, because he just got bored and he just liked doing things that were difficult. So like he would start on something, make a breakthrough in it, and then like give it up because he's like, I've done it now, right? Like, and now I'm bored. It's easy, and someone else would then build on that scientific breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
Showing they didn't really show him as someone who was unfocused in that way.
Right.
Uh, but that's kind of the only thing that they glossed over, I think.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
fair. As Aki says in chat, also they were very clear about how he was just a theory guy. He
mhm.
liked coming up with theory, using, physics and logic and everything to theorize things. But as far as actually putting it into practice, that wasn't him either. Like that was these other dudes in the room next door.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, fair enough. And that's how it is. Like super mega ultra geniuses are not ever, very, very, very rarely super mega ultra geniuses in everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not
Yeah.
how it works. So
I was really surprised by the amount of Albert Einstein in this.
yeah.
Because at first they were like, "Oh, there's Albert Einstein out the window," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's like a little historical nod to like this brilliant scientist who did like some really cool things." To summarize it, and then they were like, "Oh, we're actually going to talk to him like 3 or 4 times," and I felt kind of like it was like a superhero Avengers of all the greatest scientists. Like here's Fermi and his.
Yeah,
Here's
no, you're not
Oppenheimer. Now here's
wrong.
Albert Einstein. And like, because at the start he does like this tour of like here's some really big names in science throughout Europe, and I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, this like feels like an Avengers project at the minute. Did we
it
need
is.
this?
But
It
that's
is,
what
but
happened though. He was like, I gotta go to Europe. Young
Mhm.
Oppenheimer's like, nobody in America is talking about this.
Yeah.
I have to go to Europe if I'm gonna learn about it. And he did.
Mm-hmm.
He met all these brilliant minds, and then the war starts, and some of these brilliant minds are now Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, crap. They're like they're on the other side of the war now. And I think that was a big thing. I think that was a big part of the story.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like every once in a while, it'd be like, yeah, the Allies got Niels Bohr out from under the Nazis' thumb. Here he is. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Niels, awesome. It was I thought it was fun.
That was a good moment.
Very Avengers. You're right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was very
100%.
Avengers, except that like the scouting the team section was not the team that formed at the end to make the weapon. It was, we're gonna scout the Avengers, but then we're gonna settle with the young Avengers. For the actual team at the end. It's like it feels like if Oppenheimer had his
Mm,
choice of people, it would have been all the people who were either stuck in Europe or were Nazis. Because he literally has that line with um the guy from The Boys, Huey. He's like, "Oh my god, it's Huey." Uh, he's like, "I I would have this other guy, but he's in Berlin at the moment, so I've got you." Right?
yeah. Yeah, that's true. There was definitely some of that.
hmm
Absolutely. Good point.
Yeah, I thought it was just a weird way to film it. It's so rapid, which
Hmm.
it's weird to be like this movie was very rapid in a 3 hour sense. In some
Yeah.
sense.
So, I mean, the reason Einstein's in there is because Einstein represents the career track of Oppenheimer. Einstein was the genius of his time, but as he grew older and the science kind of passed him by and people started building on his theories, they kind of were just like, be a professor at this school, Albert, and they didn't really need him anymore.
Right.
And Albert was like, that's going to happen to you, Oppenheimer. That happens to all great minds. And this is a very autobiographical aspect of Nolan's movie here, where he's like, man, it is tough for great men, for those geniuses. No one understands them. They're always standing in their way. And when they're done, they just get pushed aside. Even Einstein, that happened to him. It's going to happen to me, and it's not fair. And it's like, all right, Chris, we get it.
One day you're going to be in film school teaching some class of kids, and
nobody will want you to make movies anymore. Yep. Yes, exactly. He's got a big opinion of himself.
Which... I did feel something in the same vein is when Oppenheimer and his wife are in like their hotel room talking to their lawyers, and he's just like, won't anyone ever tell the truth? And then he like looks directly in the camera. I'm like, really, Chris? I mean, it's meant to set up the next shot where the dude from Mr. Robot like finally like tells on Strauss. Yeah. But it felt very self-serving at the time.
Yes. And it is. Like, he unabashedly was doing that. But yeah, Rami Malek's another one. Like, it was nice. Rami Malek got a scene where he got to do some stuff. But the first two scenes he's in, he doesn't say anything. He's in the Chicago Center for Science, and Oppenheimer goes and visits, and he's just like standing there smiling like an idiot and has nothing to do. It's like, why are we casting Rami Malek for this? Whatever, it's fine. He has an Academy Award.
Yeah, I think maybe Christopher Nolan is just casting people that he likes. He's like, I could get someone else, I could get someone smaller, but I like this guy.
And they'll do it for me, so hey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that honestly could be what it is.
Just very simple. Yeah. Yeah, reasonable. Anyway, I really felt like the final 45 minutes of the film where Robert Downey Jr. is trying to sink Oppenheimer's career because he got slighted once in an imaginary conversation that Einstein had with Oppenheimer that one time at a lake. I just didn't find myself caring. Like, the movie starts off with, here's Oppenheimer. He's learning about all this stuff. We're going to build a bomb. That takes forever. We're meeting all these people. Cool stuff's happening. There's all this momentum, and the successful test happens, and it's like, wow. And then there's 45 minutes left because now we have to politically ruin Oppenheimer because of this one thing. And I'm just like, okay, I get this is part of his life, and it was a big thing that happened to him. But did it have to be this long? That's my point. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit long. I think you could probably cut 20, 30 minutes out of the movie. I think you probably could. But what I'll say is that when it's... So, they wanted to cover the security clearance court trial.
Yes.
And you need to establish why that was happening.
Yes.
And then you need payoff or resolution for that conflict for why it was happening with the bad guy as well.
And I mean, as Aki says in chat, you need Oppenheimer to lose, but then in order for there to be a happy ending, you need the person who took Oppenheimer down to lose as well.
That's
so the bad guy loses.
That's scorched earth. That's not a good.
I know.
That's not a happy ending.
It's a better ending than Oppenheimer lost his security clearance, could never work with a nuclear program again, and the guy that sunk him for stupid reasons went in to be in the president's cabinet and was successful for the rest of his life.
I mean,
it's a different ending.
That's a different ending, but that's not the ending I would change it to. I would just end it with, like, if you wanted to cut that resolution, you just cut it so that Oppenheimer lost his security clearance, the end, right? You don't even show that it was like a personal attack from someone he slighted twice. Once was imaginary. Like, if you are going to change it, you cut out that entire section where it was even deliberately orchestrated by another person. You don't show you like, and it's not necessarily a better ending than that. It's less satisfying, I think, but maybe not better.
Yeah, I just need to cut down on time. So whatever we can do To change it and not make it worse, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I mean, Robert Downey Jr. was great. It was nice to see him do something other than Iron Man for the first time in like 20 years. That was fantastic.
He was in Doctor Dolittle.
I did not see Doctor Dolittle. Maybe I should.
Yeah. It was very interesting because some of the scenes where he's first talking to Oppenheimer about like, oh, and here's the position, here's your office, and like some of those conversations, I'm like, careful, Robert, you're Tony Stark slipping in a little there. He has this like cadence of the way he talks is very like, oh, I understood that reference,
yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. It just felt like we needed to give Robert Downey Jr. an Oscar scene where he can get a supporting actor nod for the Academy Awards next year.
Sure, why not?
And the rest, I just didn't feel like the rest of it was really necessary.
I felt like I personally probably wouldn't change a lot about the movie, especially not at that end. I'd probably change some stuff at the other end. But I just wanted to say, is it supposed to be like, because there's he gets told that he didn't make the cabinet like appointment, right? And he goes, oh, who flipped? Like, who didn't we get the vote? And he's like, oh, there's one up and comer, John F.
Kennedy. Jr. Yeah.
Right.
And there's like this bright sign above the marquee, JFK Jr. Bing, bing. Yeah.
Is that the guy that got shot? Did he get shot?
Oh, you don't, right. Yes. That's him.
That's him. So what we've just set up is this is a villain who does terrible things to people who slight him. Are we supposed to think that this is like Robert Downey Jr.'s character got JFK shot?
Oh.
Because that's where my mind went either. We just spent 45 minutes talking about how this guy is a vindictive son of a bitch. And
insanely so. Yeah.
And we're personally name dropping someone who like a president who gets assassinated later in life.
Oh. Yeah, I like it. I like this. Nolan's like, I got my own theories about the JFK assassination. This one time, he was the deciding vote for this dude connected to Oppenheimer to not get a cabinet position.
Stranger things have happened.
Oh, man, that's good. That's really good. I like that very much.
Could be true. You don't know. I should ask, do we know who killed JFK? Is it like a known thing?
The official story is Lee Harvey Oswald did it.
Do we know why he did it?
General political disagreements. Lee Harvey Oswald had some like Cuban socialist political leanings. And JFK had a very specific beef with Cuba.
Well, we know Strauss doesn't like those socialists. People who socialize with socialists.
But would he use a socialist to kill JFK?
Ooh.
Because two birds, one stone. Lee Harvey Oswald got arrested and then got killed by somebody else before he could go to trial.
Yeah. Two birds, one stone.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah. I mean, there is so much material out there about the JFK Jr. assassination because there are enough weird things about it that people start to be like, the official narrative true? But I don't know. From everything that I've watched about it, it seems like, either this was Lee Harvey Oswald's idea or somebody got to him. Like just, maybe they didn't specifically hire him to kill the president. Maybe they just, a friend of his talked to him a bunch about how JFK Jr. was so bad for the country and somebody should do something about it, and then Lee Harvey was like, well, okay. And then
I've got a rifle.
One day the president comes back to come in his motorcade, is going to come by the place where he works, giving him some opportunity, and he owns a rifle. So it's just this like, this one dude had an idea, whether he was influenced or not, we'll never know because he's dead. He took the shot. He got pretty lucky with it because the distance he was at, and what he connected with is like pretty impressive. But yeah, it was one of the biggest things.
I'll wait for the JFK Nolan sequel to Oppenheimer. I draw any conclusions.
There's a 1991 movie called JFK
Yeah.
that was directed by Oliver Stone,
Okay.
like one of the great American directors that has Kevin Costner, Gary Oldman, Tommy Lee Jones, Donald Sutherland. Like this is like Joe Pesci, like the definitive American movie version of JFK. And I don't think Nolan would touch that for that reason.
Fair enough. You wouldn't want to be walking over something that's already pretty established.
Pretty like classically incredible. Yeah. Like one of the greatest movies in American cinema. So, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's got enough of an ego that he would tackle it because it's Christopher Nolan we're talking about here. Yeah. Anywho, yeah. I mean, that little name drop of JFK Jr. at the end was just like, Nolan, like, we didn't really have to do this. Why are you doing this? Why are we distracting the audience?
He wants to set up the Oppenheimer cinematic universe.
Yeah.
It's going to be a whole ton of different movies, all based around the connection of Oppenheimer. It's JFK through Strauss.
Historical docudramas about everybody through this period of American history. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah. Calling it now.
The Christopher Nolan cinematic universe. Mm-hmm. Does he do that? Like, you know how Pixar puts little Easter eggs from their other movies in their movies?
Mm-hmm. Does Nolan do that?
You think Nolan drops any things like that?
I don't know.
I'm going to Google Nolan movies connected universe.
I mean, I would be more inclined to say no, just because this is something that's very grounded in reality, and a lot of his other stuff are very either directly someone else's intellectual property or just very off the wall things.
Yeah.
So I think it would be kind of hard to drop references to a lot of that stuff.
Agreed. And I mean, quick Google says no. Like there are some themes that he goes back to, but like he doesn't drop. Right. Like he doesn't put the interstellar spaceship, you know, on a poster on a wall in Dark Knight or anything. Like that's just not what he does. Right. Yeah. Well, good. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's made as much money as people expected it to. It's done very well, but like we're talking about a 3-hour-long biopic. Historical biopic about something that happened, you know, 100 years ago at this point. So one of the only people who could make this movie and still make $400 million is Nolan.
Right. What was the budget? Do we know that?
Let's see what Box Office Mojo says.
I mean, I'm looking at it on Box Office Mojo. I don't see the budget.
So 100 mil?
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Seems cheap.
A Reddit post, so take it for what it's worth, says that a lot of the actors have huge back-end deals where they get paid a percentage of the profits.
Mm-hmm. Maybe so that explains the casting. It's like, well, who are the people who will take money at the other end rather than up front?
Yeah. Yeah. So this person does some math and says the budget's closer to $250 million.
Okay. Fair enough.
So what's the box office here?
Mm-hmm. Dun, dun, dun. Box office says 400 million worldwide, right? So they're making money. They've made a profit.
Definitely. Is it as much as they expected? Probably not yet, if ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Made more money than Tenet. Not hard. Man, there's a dense, hard to sell movie. Holy crap, Tenet.
Yeah. Yes, like I watched that movie once.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was enough.
Me too. That was enough. Mm-hmm. It's so funny because it's like you go on the internet and people are like, "What didn't you understand? Here's a massive chart of all the stuff in this movie and the timelines," and I'm like, "Okay, no, I'm not going to try to absorb your insanely big chart of all the different timelines in this movie. That's not happening."
Yeah. Nah.
Oh, fantastic. All right, good. Is that all the Oppenheimer thoughts we have?
Yeah. I think that's probably about it.
All right. Sounds good. Cool. So that is going to be it from us today then. This has been Falcon Paladin and Samicron coming at you with yet another edition of the Falcon Paladin Hour. You can support the podcast directly by buying merch at falconpaladin.store, including a shirt with a Falcon quote about having sex with a bear. You can also support the podcast directly by subscribing to Samicron on Twitch at twitch.tv/Samicron, and also being a pledge at Patreon at patreon.com/Samicron.
It's true.
All these are true facts. So we'll be back next week, probably, unless something comes up because it's the summertime. But at this point, I think we're good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think we're good.
All right. And catch the VODs at youtube.com/@Samicron as well.
Yep. True facts.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Very good. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. Until next time, as always, you take care of yourself.
Goodbye.